about ecosystems. We're actually going to start the ecology unit this week. So this is just a brief intro, and a lot of this you've probably learned before. So ecology is the study of the interactions among organisms and between organisms and their environment. A key part of this is that we're talking about the environment and organisms interacting. When we talk about ecology, we have to talk about the whole environment from the single organism all the way up to like the whole planet Earth. All right, so we start with the individual. The individual would include the interactions between a single organism and its surroundings. So how I interact with where I am, with the world around me, like what I plant, what I take, what I eat, what I give. All right. Next, we have the population, which would be a group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area. So that would be like all the people in my town, which is Chelmsford. We'd be a population, right? When we talk about population, let's just remember from past years what a species is. A species is a group of organisms that are able to reproduce, right, and have offspring. Um, After population is community. A community is the different organisms that live in the same area. So if we look at our little picture here, right, we have our individuals, that little girl moose, right? The population would be all, or I think that's an elk, all of the elk in the area. The community would then be the elk in the moose and the mountain lion, and I think it's a bobcat actually, and the owl, the beaver, the rabbit. Okay, that would be the community. The trees are also part of the community because trees are living, right? We can't forget the plants. Our next level is the ecosystem. Now, this level has a lot of information here, okay? Because our ecosystem is going to include all of the organisms that live in a particular place, along with their non-living or physical environment, okay? So we sometimes call that like a habitat. Think about when like you go and get a hamster from a pet store, right? And there's all those like books on the spinny thing, and it can be like all of the different habitats where the hamster would live, right? The habitat would be like the cage, and what do you need in the cage, and how much water do they drink, and what temperature do they like it, right? So the ecosystem sometimes kind of can be interchangeable with habitat at times. And when we talk about ecosystem, we're talking about those living and non-living things. There are some fancy science words that we use for that. We say biotic, think of the B in biotic, and think of bio. Okay, so this would be all of the living parts of the ecosystem, including dead things. All right, so that would be plants, animals, um, things like animal bones, right? Dead logs, okay? And then our abiotic is non-living because A means non. When we see A, it usually means non. So non-living parts of the ecosystem, this is like the water, the wind, the temperature, the air temperature, the humidity, the rocks, the dirt, right? Okay, so ecosystem is going to include our biotic and our abiotic. After ecosystem, we go up to biome, and I'm sure you've done this in other grades. Biome is a group of ecosystems that have the same climate and the same dominant communities. All right, so we have like tropical rainforest, we have desert, we have tundra, right? And then above biome, we have biosphere, which would be the planet Earth. So this is all the biomes across the whole Earth, all combined together. So we have our individual, right? The single person, the population, the group of the same species so they can interbreed and have offspring, the community, which is all of the living organisms. So we have like living, right? Ecosystem, which is next, which is going to be our living and non-living. This is where non-living comes in, right? Temperature, wind, all that kind of stuff. Then we have biome and then biosphere, which is the earth. When we talk about organisms in the ecosystem, this I'm positive you've done before. We talk about producers and consumers. So producers are autotrophs. They produce something. So what they do is they use photosynthesis to take sunlight and make carbohydrates. Okay, auto means they do it themselves, and troph means to feed, so they're going to feed themselves. All right. These would be our green organisms. It's plant, algae, and some bacteria. Then we have our consumers. When you consume something, you eat it. So these are heterotrophs, who have to eat stuff in order to get energy, okay? This would be animals, fungi, bacteria, right? These are things that actually consume stuff. Autotrophs keep heterotrophs alive, and heterotrophs are going to rely on autotrophs for all of their food. That's why we can't live without plants. When we talk about consumers into a more, like break it out into more detail, right, we have particular types. We have herbivores, which eat plants, carnivores, which eat animals, and omnivores, which eat both. I'm positive that one, like the last slide, is a review, but let's bring all that stuff back into our head. Lastly, decomposers, which are going to be consumers, things that consume the plant and animal remains. Sometimes they call these detrivores, right? So detrivores eat dead things. Decomposers break things down into like their basic chemical components. All right, so they secrete digestive enzymes that actually break down digestive organic matter, right? Let's remember organic from last chapter means it has carbon, right? These would be bacteria, fungi, snails, crabs, earthworms. I guess that's it. All right, so quick lecture. Make sure you have all of your notes written in your notebook. If you didn't write them down the first time, please go back and just watch it one more time. It's only 6 minutes, and write down all of the notes as we go, because you should have like the exact format of the notes in your notebook. All right, you had the period to do this. Come back to the room when you are done watching.